going to also reintroduce Mary Beth since I got a little ahead of myself. But basically, I'll put some of the highlights in there for you. She is a marketing teacher at National University, and she helps lead the marketing faculty as well as the Masters in Marketing. She's an author for Stu Kent's mobile marketing textbook and is now working on the 9th edition of it. She's been in marketing, digital marketing since 1993 and is a leader in Hispanic marketing. She's part of a founder of the Sun Marketing Agency, and she has a podcast called Dr. Mary Travel Best Guide, which is found on all platforms. So if you're interested in it, go ahead and give her a follow. She definitely keeps herself updated with what's happening in the world and wants to be able to help all marketing people. So here's her bio in the chat. Feel free to ask any questions in that chat so that way I can, at the end of this, and ask Mary Beth, and we'll get those questions in for you.
And in case you're wondering where it is that I am, well, I'm in Southern California, specifically San Diego, and my background here is a shot of the Poseidon restaurant, which is on the beach. So if any of you are in San Diego, you have to check this out because this seems to be the place to go. I have been their agency of record for nearly 30 years, if that tells you anything about being a good marketer. I don't really have to do anything. This view sells itself. So that's the one thing that I just want to point out. Great to have you here today. I'm really, really excited to give some insights into what is the case marketing. How do you get cases into the minds of students and tell those sticky stories? So I'd like to let you know that I'm going to give you this sneak peek. This is an advanced preview of 8 cases that are going to be in the next edition. So you're the first ones to have seen any of these cases, and feedback, of course, is welcome. But at the end, you will be tasked to start thinking, if not doing, your own cases. And then as a further bonus, you can teach your students how to write their own cases. So I think we need to start talking about getting sticky. Okay, so maybe we can end the poll for now, and then in about, 5 minutes, we'll show you the results of what your peers have said about their challenges in writing case studies and what percentage of your courses have case studies. And by the way, the first 2 sessions that I attended this morning were excellent. And so was Stu's presentation. So I'm really, really glad that I could be a part of this presentation and to help you understand cases better. And I'll just say that I really knew very little about cases myself when I first got started in teaching. So I had written cases for my own clients, like the Poseidon restaurant, like some car dealerships, and like some other businesses that I had worked for. They were short cases and they were meant to promote my company. Now I'm giving a different spin on it, and that's to help students understand cases that are based on somewhat fictional stories, okay? And when I say stories, it's because there are facts in the cases that have theory behind it. And that's where it gets sticky. Students love stories. That's what they remember. They're going to remember your class about the stories you told them. And the more that they can be applied to the theory, then they're going to go away with what you hope they learn. Okay, so this is the cover of the textbook. And we started on this journey in 2014. I've written more than 50 cases in mobile marketing so far. So if any of you have been in the Mobile Marketing Essentials course, you have seen these cases. There is no additional fee for any of these cases. And I think that's a real important point, because maybe some of you have also seen cases sometimes can add cost to the class experience, and that's not always a good one. So we're going to talk about some cases, about how you can write some, and then about how you can have your students write some as well. So when we teach, what we're trying to do is impart some learning. And it's the context of that learning that really makes a difference. So the stories become that context. They inspire permanent student learning. Ask your students, what did they remember best about their last class with you? And give them a chance to express the way they learned the stories. So to give you a little sneak peek again, the cases I'm going to talk about today include TikTok, Disney Plus, Clubhouse, and a few other gems that are all related to mobile marketing. So when I said digital marketing, that was to get a few more of you interested. I'm specifically going to focus on mobile marketing. How many of you don't have your phone within a reach of your hand right now? I'd like to know if any of you don't have your mobile phone right in your hand or are watching this on a mobile device. I think you're going to really find some great things. You know, mobile has become the go-to. I'm not going to show you a bunch of slides on that, but you know, mobile has outpaced any other marketing channel. And there's a lot to talk about with mobile in the future, including with 5G, with the Facebook ID, and all of the other things that are going on. So now let's show our poll results if we can. I thought these might be the issues, but I'm kind of surprised that writing questions is the top one. Okay, so 29% of you said that writing questions is the hardest part of teaching digital case studies. And I think that could be part of the plagiarism. Only 10% said that. So writing questions could help alleviate the plagiarism. So maybe we can focus a little bit about writing questions. And if you get this deck, and I'd be happy to share it with you as Stu Kent would too, I did include the questions for each one of the cases in the notes files. So I appreciate that you have a need for learning how to write questions. Can we show the second poll question? Also, I want to find out how many of you are actually using case studies in your classes. Okay, so everybody's using at least some percentage of their learning in cases. That's great. Okay, thank you so much for that. I'm really, really interested in finding out, you know, costs. We mentioned a lot of case studies, and the Harvard business ones were mentioned earlier, and Stanford's got some great ones, but they usually cost between $5 and $10 each per student. And if they're only going to use it once, it might not feel like they got good value, although the cases are really very, very well done. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how I started using case studies. I mentioned that I did them for my own company, but then I also went to a seminar, a conference, and all these educators were writing long case studies. And so I got hooked. I started writing cases about PG&E with 3 other professors from other universities all across the country. And we won 3rd place in this national contest. And then the second year I did a case on Tesla, and that won 1st place. So I was on a roll. Then I did one on Peloton, that also won. And this year I submitted 2 cases. One is on Theranos and Chiat Day, and it's an ethics case. And another one is a case on the COVID response of a tourism company. And that's we call Dayton Tours. And those are in process of review for this national conference that's coming up in October. So I'm concerned about cost. The time that it takes to do a long case can really be a challenge, especially when there's so many things you want to teach. And I'll address questions more as we go through the various cases. What my students often do is they plagiarize And, it's happening whether you realize it or not. They're just going to the internet and they're finding the case and they're just copying and pasting the answers. So that's why having different questions is really going to be important. And then relevance. A lot of the case studies we see are old and really out of date. So things like this tourism during the pandemic and the Theranos case, I think, are going to be really relevant for our for students coming up. Those are those long cases. And let me know which case you like best out of these. So this is the first one here. And certainly you can put your comments in. Thank you, Darlene and Carly, for being on, for checking those comments. So I call this Domino's data because, frankly, they are much less of a pizza company than they are a data company. In about 3 clicks, you can get your pizza. Why have they been called the mobile app of the decade? Because Domino's has delivered mobile in a big, big way. So if you're looking for a real easy case to start out with, talk about how Domino's is competing with a local pizza chain via mobile. Get your students to compare the two. And again, you could write that case, and I'll give you some tips on how to do that at the end. So think about writing your own case, maybe use mobile app Domino's as the test, and then see if the students can find an example in your own local area of what their mobile experience is. They've been ahead for so long, it's going to be hard to beat. So our second is a dating app. So students love talking about dating apps. They're in the demo. Here's an example of Christian dating, and you can also look at eHarmony for that specific niche. Bumble is a wonderful example of a woman-owned. If you haven't been there, they've also expanded into some BFFs and BIZZs. So it's not just about dating, it's about friendship, and it's also about jobs. So they've made apps, their whole category is expanded there. And then I want to give a shout out to Kristen from Cal Poly Pomona. She's doing the keynote on Wednesday, the final keynote. And so Kristen helped me with this case. So thanks to you, Kristen. She introduced me to an app called Kismet. And this one looks at Indian Vedic type of promotion. So it's a niche within the category. So you might be familiar with other dating apps. Students, I think, will really enjoy the relevance of this for their lives. They're coming out of this fear of dating again, or FODA, and they're going to get back into the FOMO, right? So I think people are, I think this is an easy case for you to introduce to your students, and they'll jump on that. So now we're talking about relevancy. So Clubhouse, has just blown up this year, unlike any app I've seen in a long time. And what I did was I created a story with some truth to it. I watched this woman do a crowdfunding case in her Clubhouse room. And what she was doing was raising funds to start her company. And she created $5,000. She got people to pledge $5,000 within a few minutes. Well, all they had to do was, from the Clubhouse room, find her, click on her Instagram, and in her Instagram profile, click on the link. And then the link opened up to her crowdfunding, and people paid. They funded it. Wow, what a great case to bring into your class. And on a further note, you could hold your class or some lessons from your marketing class in Clubhouse by starting your own club and inviting students to join. We've done that at National University. We had students, it was optional, they didn't have to come, but what a great experience to hold your class in a Clubhouse room. Wouldn't that get some great buzz? What's different about Clubhouse, and you can teach this as you're doing the case, is that it's the number 6 type of social media. It is like podcasting, but there's no recording, video, or comments. $4 billion was the last valuation I saw. I have a club on Clubhouse. I'm active there. It's one of those fear of missing out factors. It's by invitation only still. I do have some invites. If anybody wants to DM me, I'll be happy to send you an invite. First come, first serve. Okay, next case. Hope you guys are doing great because this one's a great one. This is TikTok and Walmart, the partnership itself. It kind of reminds me of peanut butter and jelly. They just go together. You could, in your class, go into the app live and look at what the ads are for Walmart under TikTok. So you probably want to start your own account. You know, this is 2 billion downloads so far of this app with a B. L'Oreal did something different just last week. Now, their UK team created a new presence on the app. And what's really good for packaged goods items, of course, L'Oreal is found in all the different stores, but it makes friction go away. People can actually click that TikTok ad and buy right out of that platform. There's frictionless purchasing going on. So I think this is a fantastic case. Of course, ByteDance owns the company. They're based in China. They just lifted the sanctions last week. They just lifted all of the other restrictions. So I think going forward, this case could be one of your best cases. Okay, so we're getting through about half of them now. Disney Plus was a case last year. And because it was so significant, we did it again this year. How many, if you want to put this in the chat, how many streaming services do you personally subscribe to? Just to kind of see what your other professors are doing would be interesting. So what we're focused on in this case is Disney Plus, which you can see in the top row, the fourth one from the left. But the competition is fierce and new additions are being added all the time. What has been driving Disney Plus during the pandemic, other than the Mandalorian mega hit that they started with, is just the amount of time that people have to try things out. So if Disney Plus hadn't been around, I think the brand Disney would have really suffered. I'm interested in hearing what your ideas about streaming services are. And I think that your students could take this chart or one that you create and give an analysis of which one of the streaming services, now most of these come in via mobile. So that's the point. Which one of these services serve the mobile viewer best? You can look at many different facets of that. So hopefully you can enjoy teaching that case and students can learn about the value of trends in streaming and loyalty and other types of really key marketing, segmentation, targeting, positioning, all the other things that you're teaching in your class, and especially on a mobile device. Okay, so this one I had never heard of before. And I want to credit my friend Angelina Dayton and her teenage daughter for helping me create this case. It's a hit. It has all the elements that you would like for luxury brands. So if you're teaching any course that has a luxury element to it, this is for teenage gals, but you can, some as young as 8 or 9 year olds are using it. And each day you get 100 diamonds and you can use those diamonds to buy clothing. I created my avatar and I created an outfit for me to wear to the royal wedding. I had fun. I think that your students will embrace this. And from a marketing perspective, there's a $300 billion marketplace behind fashion. Students could start their own fashion house, for example, in your class. And the case really can be taught, again, on a luxury basis, on branding, And there's actual sales being done of last year's clothing lines. This is a good case for ethics also, because think about it. If teenage kids, teenage gals for the most part, are learning how to shop and buy on this app, they're primed to be doing that more and more in the future. And this has taken off globally. So I'm interested if anybody has ever heard of COVID fashion or not. If you have, and you have a profile in there, I'd love you to share that in the chat as well. And we're going to have some Q&A towards the end. So I'm going to save some time if you are thinking about any of these cases or have some questions. Again, in the notes are all of the questions that are in the textbook starting this year. Okay, so still on our sneak peek here. So this case was written by one of my students. And so it does show you that a student can do a fantastic job creating a watch, a case. This one talks about Fitbit, Samsung, Apple, and the differences between each one of these products. And again, it's a mobile marketing case created by a student, and which of these platforms works best, which one works best for advertisers. And I think you can also bring in the health benefits of smartwatches here. If you watched the developer conference last week that Apple put on, I think you'll see Tim Cook really wanting to focus on the health benefits of these watches. For example, diabetes monitoring and other types of heart rate monitoring. So smartwatches are a marketer's dream. They will operate even if someone is working or sleeping or swimming or other things. So you can definitely get a better picture, that 360-degree view, because they don't always have their phone on them, but they will have their watch on. So this case, I think, not only from a great wearable device from the mobile experience, but marketers are just starting to look at this. You know, it's a small screen. So how much can you show? And there's some challenges indeed. So your students will be able to address those. Okay, so this is my final case that I'm going to share today. This one comes to me from a personal point of view. I have a car rental that I'm going to pick up in Chicago on Wednesday. So I'm using this app. If you haven't heard of it, think of it like Airbnb, but for cars. So my car, I'm going to pick up on the street where it's parked and return it on the street where it's parked. The only way to do that is with a mobile device. Now, I'm going to take a photo of my driver's license and hold it up next to my face. I have to do that within 24 hours. And in this particular situation, I have to get it washed, and I have to fill up the tank and let them know where the car is parked before they actually are going to release, my liability for the car after I use it. But if you haven't checked lately, the cost to rent a car has skyrocketed. So this could be a great alternative for you. It's not in every city yet, but it's in most of the major cities in the US and several abroad. So if you haven't checked out Turo, this could be a good case for you to use and adapt for your classes. I am ready to report that there has been a little bit of a question in my mind about what happens if the car breaks down. And I asked my owner about that, and they said, if it's a simple thing, call me. If it's a complicated thing, call Turo. So I'll let you know how that goes. So today's environment using mobile devices has really become the fabric of our mobile experiences. And these are, they're trying to build trust. Notice in the copy here that trusted hosts is the key word. As we heard in the session prior, trust is really a factor that has been missed. I mean, I really think we've missed that lately. So Let's see how Turo rolls out. And another question that you might ask your students, what's keeping Hertz, Avis, and Enterprise and all these other car rental companies from entering this space? So they've got the fleets. What's keeping them back from making Turo an afterthought? So let's see what happens with this company. I'm really interested in finding out where this goes. So innovation, yes. Could they be copied? Yes. So let's see. And your students will probably have some great insights on ride sharing as this case gets rolled out to your class. So again, if you have any questions about these cases, I want to hear about it. Okay. So again, we are a team here seen together. We started with Stu Kent in 2014. That was when I first approached Stu and said, you haven't got a book on mobile marketing. And he said, that's right. Would you like to do it? And I said, absolutely. And so I gathered people who were smarter than me and put the team together. I'm the corresponding author. As mentioned, we have written 8 editions thus far. That's 8 different rewrites within a short amount of time. And we just completed one that will be available shortly. If you haven't had a chance to test out this, run through not only the cases that you've seen here and the older ones, you can ask your rep, how can I get the teaching notes? How can I get the PowerPoints? Where do I find all of the content? They'll be happy to walk you through all of that. So I was an early adopter. I was the 3rd title for this company, and it's been a great relationship. Thank you so much. And it wasn't a requirement for me to have a book to speak to you today. I just enjoy talking about cases so much. So now we're going to focus on you. How do you create a case? So I'm going to just point out that it can be a challenge, but I tried to break it into 6 easy steps here. And I created a PDF that's posted in the National University LibGuide so that any marketing students can learn how to write their own cases. Any marketing faculty can see how to step-by-step create their own cases. So I want to make this as simple as possible. The steps are as follows. If you're passionate about a company or a topic, select it and say, I'm going to write a case about it. Identify what you want. Now, it could be right at your fingertips. It could be right in the room you're sitting in right now. It could be in your car when you're driving today or later. I think this would be a great topic for a case. Fine, identify it. The next step is to research it. And it could be that you start small and start with basic search engines, finding textbooks, finding other cases that have been written on that topic. And just as an example, this Theranos case that I wrote, I first read this book called Bad Blood by a Wall Street Journal reporter. And that got me really interested in what was going on in the ethics behind the Theranos case. Now, that's not one of the mobile marketing presentations. It's a long case. It's 20 pages, but it really got me interested in the topic and basically talk to the experts about it. So step 3, after you've researched your topic, you've got lots of links to articles and to question thoughts. You might just be thinking about some questions that you might want to ask. You don't have to write the questions down right now, but you do want to say, what lesson does this teach? All right. What lesson does this teach to me as well as to the students? And so that step is really important in this process. Then the fun parts where you've got this chance to create a scenario, somewhat plausible, use your imagination and some credible circumstances. And that's where you get to be the designer. You get to be the creator. You get to be the problem presenter and then the problem presenter. Now, these scenarios don't always have answers. So you don't necessarily have to give any answers. You just have to create the problem. And then you can develop some questions in our 5th step those are the challenges you've admitted to right now in the poll. So I want to maybe dive in there a little bit further. You may develop 15 questions and then only use 3 or 4 of them. So let your brain explore different topics. Maybe take the textbook you're using right now, the mobile marketing textbook, and select a chapter and try to figure out what kinds of questions you, by the way, I do write all the questions for the mobile marketing textbook. So it's like a muscle. If you find questions in the back of each chapter, perhaps you can adapt some of those questions to fit your case. So you don't have to create them from scratch. And I hope that helps you as well. So again, developing questions, if that's a challenge for you, go to your textbook, whatever it is, look at the end of the chapter questions, and then see if any of those questions can be just tweaked a little bit to make your questions really sound and teach the theory, but it's kind of subtle in a way. Students don't realize they're learning, but they are. And it will be after the fact that they realized, oh, that story, because of the context of the situation, it made me think. It's developed my critical thinking skills. And so that's the real beauty of this. Okay, and now the 6th step is just edit, revise, get some feedback, send it to another class, send it to a student, see what they think. Use the case, try it out, and then revise and keep revising. So if you have comments on any of the cases that I've presented here today, I would be delighted to update them, to change them, to improve them. And so this is more of, how do we work together? These cases are good, but I'm going to need another 10 or 15 cases for the 9th edition. So I'm looking forward to hearing, how did you teach these cases? What worked? What didn't work for you? Did you break into groups and do them? Did you have a debate when you set up your class? And you can do these whether you're teaching online or whether you're teaching on site or a hybrid class. These case studies can be really the most memorable thing that a student takes away after they finish your class, because it's their story that they're telling. So that's the bonus. That's the icing on the cake, is when you can have them create a case. They have a pride of ownership that they will carry with them for years. They will say, yes, I am an author. I have created a case. My class had a chance to hear and use my case perhaps, and then my professor had a chance to review it, and they can publish their case. There are student competitions for case studies, and they can enter their cases in those. And as a faculty member, you can enter your cases in the Jacobs and Clevenger case competition. It's in its 27th year. There is no cost to enter. And Susan Jones and Steve Kelly are the founders of that. So Jacobs and Clevenger case competition, if you want to enter your case. So with that, I want to make sure that we have enough time to answer any of your questions about case studies, and also about how you can write a case. And lastly, how to get your students motivated to write their own cases. You could even have your own case competition and award a Starbucks gift card for the best case. That could be, or a ProfCon swag. Maybe ProfCon wants to come up with some swag for a winning case. And if it's a mobile marketing case, please have your students send it to me. I'm reachable. I'd love to use that in our next edition on mobile marketing essentials. Okay, so that's what I'd like to share with you today. Again, we had Domino's, we had Clubhouse, we had TikTok, we had dating apps, we had Turo, smartwatches, streaming services like Disney Plus. There were a lot of cases that you were presented today and that you can just pick up and drop in your class. You can use it for a full class, or you can use it for just a partial class. How about I stop my share and we can have any Q&A right now. Darlene, back to you.
Awesome. That was great. Thank you. Feel free, anybody, to put any questions you have. We have collected a few, but keep them coming. The first one that will go, someone asked, Mary Beth, what you think of the Starbucks app.
Fantastic. You know, I love the Starbucks app. I've used it twice already in my cases. So if you can go back to last year's cases in Mobile Marketing Essentials, and if you have access to the courseware, you have access to this course. You can access and use that case. I'm fine with you using it in your class. I have no problem with you using the Starbucks. I think they were genius. They were so brilliant. I also did a case on Dunkin' Donuts, so their competition, right? So I think you could present, maybe half the class could do Starbucks and half the class could do Dunkin'. Those would be really great cases for students. They're using them. And why was Starbucks so brilliant with that app is because they all have money on their app. It's like their bank. So they've been able to use a banking situation, and this money is actually part of their fund. I mean, it's basically cash in their account. And I see Matthew Sauber on the account. I want to give Matthew a shout out. He was one of my co-authors in the PG&E case. So thank you, Matthew, for being here today. Fantastic. And Sean's one of our faculty at National University. Great to see you as well. So thank you for that. So I really love the Starbucks example. That's a great one. Thanks. Yeah. And if anybody has a question about, any of has anybody used any of these cases in their classes? I'd love to get some feedback. It's kind of like as a podcaster, you're out there talking about your topic and it's really hard to get feedback from the audience. So I'm really interested in hearing what you guys are, how you're teaching the cases.
I saw that there were lots of people that were excited about cases, especially analytics case studies, and looking kind of, so I think it was great that you show them how to kind of write their own, especially for that, since there are some topics that maybe people want more than others. One person asked about if you know any cases on wellness or health related.
Absolutely. I did some cases on those diabetes monitors. 2 of my 4 children have type 1 diabetes. And so I've been using I did a case study on Dexcom, and that was, a health and wellness app that I think is a really good one for you to look at if you can. And I'll also mention this new case that I wrote on Dayton tours, the tourism industry. So I surveyed all of the tour managers worldwide and got the data on things like this last one was about vaccinations. It was on the use of masks. It was on terms and conditions. It was about pricing and whether they even expected to be in business in a year. So I was able to use primary data and write a case study that is going to be used. Actually, it was used by National University in May. It was tested out and the students just loved it. So talking about relevance, if you could have your students write a case that would be relevant to the pandemic and getting back on track for a marketing message through mobile, wow, that would be great. Because these tourism companies, they've totally pivoted. First of all, they were all closed, and many of them are still closed, and they don't know when they're going to open because buses are in closed places, and they're doing things like using mobile check-ins instead of that clipboard that they used to have to check people back in on the bus. So the whole industry is making a huge shift toward mobile, as has every industry. So great. I love talking about health and wellness. I think that is going to be a big factor with the next generation. And again, that smartwatches case written by a student, please let me know if you use that one.
Yeah, real quick, there's been a few people that have asked about where the Starbucks case that you referenced, where they can get access to it. Is this one of the ones that is in your textbook?
It's in the current issue. It's in the, I think chapter 1, chapter 2. If you go to Stu Kent courseware, go to Mobile Marketing Essentials, go to Cases, and it's chapter 1 or chapter 2. I think Duncan is chapter 1 and Starbucks is chapter 2.
Awesome. I know there's been a few links in the chat. I think Carly's about to put another one, but that should be where you should be able to access any of these case studies that she's talked about, especially the ones that will be coming out soon. But someone wanted to know if you publish your case studies anywhere besides Kent as well.
Yes, the long ones are published in, you can buy them on Amazon in a case study book. They're in the 3rd edition right now. And all of my cases are in that one. And if you need to, I'm sure I can get a link for you on that. I'm not actually pitching it. If you email me and want to take a look at the case, I'm happy to share that with you. But please note, I'm leaving for Chicago tomorrow. So I'm really excited to respond to you fast. So please do respond quickly.
That's awesome. Someone wanted to know about how to write your own case study information, your step-by-step process. If you have a link to that PDF that they'd be able to use in their classroom.
Actually, if you go to LinkedIn to this event on LinkedIn, the PDF is there in my comments. So in LinkedIn, in our event, I posted a please come to my event, and then underneath that in my comment, I did provide that PDF, and I'm happy to send it to LinkedIn, and I'm happy to send it to Stucand and have them distribute it. The LibGuide is something that I would hope everybody would talk to your librarian and ask your librarian to set up a special place for your marketing information. And in that link, you could put as much content as you like. It's kind of an unlimited space. So I've done this, and I work with other faculty too. So we're actually putting together all the resources, including case studies in this LibGuide. And by the way, I also see Rico Garcia. I want to put a shout out for him. Rico wrote a case. He's also a student of mine, just recent graduate. He wrote a case on a coffee shop that is in the next edition. So Rico's case will be seen in the chapter 3 of the next edition. And it was about how to use SMS for a coffee shop. So shout out to you. It's a really simple, quick case on how to do SMS marketing. And he gives some stats on what the success was for his coffee shop in Sacramento. So thanks, Rico, for doing that case.
Awesome. We have a few other questions. One about how long do you take to write a case, and the questions. This person said that I think it would take a long time, and that it might be something that they would have to put aside, considering that every teacher they already have time allotted for teaching class and all of that. So if you have any tips for that, that'd be great.
Yeah, you could be in the shower. That could be where your inspiration comes, or you could be driving the car along. Just make a note of it and say, I think this would make a really good case. And if you start getting a notebook on your phone, just start notes about these would be some case ideas. You're not going to follow up on every one, but there'll be some gems that come along that just say, I'm passionate about this. And I know that my students haven't had that experience yet to learn that topic. How can I what you're basically doing is you are reversing the process. You're kind of going backwards to the learning. So you get the learning that you want to, let's say you want to teach branding, okay? Then you find a brand that is stunning to you. And you say, I really am in awe of how they're branding that company. And then you kind of create a scenario that involves a fictitious person, and you say, what would that person be doing in their real world, and kind of a persona of that person. And then the case, and you can collaborate with another faculty as well. So in my long cases, I collaborate with others. So be on the lookout for some person in the room right now, tag them and say, let's write a case together. You know, that I think is a really great way to develop a learning committee, like a learning group who writes cases together. So I agree, but I thought it was going to be really, really hard. But once I got going, I got hooked. So I feel that there are a lot of cases that need to be told from whatever town you live in around the world. There's a case that just hasn't been heard yet. And it's maybe your role to bring that to light.
Awesome. We have quite a few questions on like specific cases or ones that you may have heard of. One question was about, are there any case studies on diversity? And there's other questions about kind of, have you been able to see this in a case, or do you use Clubhouse? So I know that some of these questions, it may be best if they just get in contact with you.
Sure thing. Yeah. So
But
most of my business career, I've been focused on Hispanic marketing. So if you look me up under Google or whatever, you're going to see about Hispanic marketing. So a lot of cases I've written about Spanish language marketing. And so as far as diversity goes, I've written several cases on how using Spanish language media has been effective. Companies that I worked with include Gerber Baby Foods, Nestle, Party Homes, and several other industries. So I think that there is definitely opportunity to bring in DEI into this conversation. And yes, I've been doing this. I got involved in that 30 years ago, 35 years ago. So I've been on the forefront of this type of marketing, and I look forward to reading. If you have a case that's relevant and you are interested in having me publish that and it's mobile related, I would certainly consider it too. Thank you.
yeah, awesome. So I know that we're kind of running out of time, but I know the people definitely appreciate it. I've seen people saying like, this is great information, and that'll be helpful in their classes, especially just seeing all the different kind of types of case studies that there are. It feels like there are questions about, is there this kind, is there this kind? And it feels like it's an unlimited area, especially when you've taught us kind of how to write our own. So really grateful for that information. And people take advantage of Mary Beth and her experience. So if you have questions for her, find her on LinkedIn. She is willing and she's very helpful. So get that in there. To lead into the next events that will be happening, we will be having more breakout rooms, and they'll be starting at 12 o'clock. So you kind of get a little break to give yourself time to run to the bathroom, get a snack, whatever it may be. But if you need any help in trying to find this textbook, you can go on to our website. You can request a walkthrough of the product where they'll go through the different case studies that she's done, so you can kind of see that information for yourself and see how you could use it in your own classroom. If there are any other questions, feel free to reach out, but I'll stick around for a little bit, but I think that will close up our time. Thank you very much, Mary Beth, and I'm grateful that you gave your time today.
Thank you. Just in closing, I want to say that it's about applying learning. Unless students apply what they've been taught, it's going to miss. So think of getting sticky. How can you get like a Band-Aid stickiness with your students?